Hello, welcome to Learning to Drum. I'm your host, Adam Tevlin. And last week we went through solo number 5, and this week we're going to be learning a new time signature. So welcome back to the show. If this is your first time viewing the show, please go back to episode 1. You'll do yourself a world of favor, and I know I remind everyone every week on that, but you just never know who's going to jump in at any given time. And we have an exciting show today. But before we go into that new time signature, the 2-4 time, we're going to go do a test. Dun, 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 bong. That's right. Yeah, test time. All right. So what we're going to be doing is the accent exercise with alternating hands, okay? And you remember the goal? That goal was supposed to be at 80 beats per minute. And that was from week 22, episode 19, I believe. Let's go ahead and maybe play it a little slower. We'll do it at 70, and then we'll test at 80, okay? All right, so did I catch you off guard, by the way? That's why we always practice what we've learned. Always, always, always. Okay. All right, we'll talk about that. There's going to get a point to where you cannot practice everything every day. We'll talk about that in just a sec, but let's go ahead and try it at 70. 1, 2 at 70, 1 and a 2, and here we go. And oops, that's all right. All right. So there it is at 70. Let's bump it up to 80. It is going to be test time. And, you know, I hope you're stretching out before you practice and you warm up and things like that. The stretching part is good. We showed you that some episodes ago. So keep remembering to do that. All right, at 80, here we go. 1, you ready? 2, 1 and a 2, and here we go. And oh, a little sloppy at the end there. That's all right. But that's at 80 beats per minute. How did you do? If you didn't do so well, that's okay. All right, so accent exercise with alternating hands will help you out in a number of ways, and we're obviously going to discover that in the episodes to come. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's turn to page 35. And we have study number 14 now. There is a new time signature that we talked about, which is 2-4 time, and if we remove the 2 and replace it with a 1, we still have the fraction 1/4, so the quarter note will still get the beat. All right, now the top number again, you remember? What does it mean? Okay, it means that's how many beats are in a measure. Okay, so the number 2 tells us how many beats are in that measure, and it's 2 beats now for every measure instead of 4. And if you notice in these exercises I do not have repeated rhythmic figures as we had in the past. I figure by now we're a little bit more versed in our reading that I can variate those rhythms so you can kind of get an idea and maybe more of a feel of how that 2-4 is going to be. And I also don't have any sticking implemented because by now you should already kind of get your head wrapped around alternate sticking and natural sticking. So keep that in mind, and we will repeat each exercise. So here we go. I'm going to dial my metronome to 70. Since we're dealing with quarter notes and eighth notes, 70 again is on the slower side, but but you know, it's a little bit faster than what we were previously doing, which would be at 60 or 50 sometimes, you know, but here's 70 with number 1. Now I'm going to change my beat to from 4/4 to 2/4, so it high clicks on the 1 of every 2. And we'll do number 1. Okay, very easy. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Repeat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Very easy enough, huh? Okay, now let's go on to number 2, where we're going to have 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, and. All right, here we go. 2, 1, 2, here we go. And 1, and 2, and 1, and 2, and 1, and 2, and 1, and 2. Repeat. 1, and 2, and 1, 2, and 1, and 2, and 1, 2, and. Not bad. Simple enough. Okay, number 3, 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and. Okay, here we go. 2, 1 and 2, and here we go. And 1 and 2, 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 and. Not a big deal. Okay. All right, number 4, resting on the downbeat of 1. We're going to be on the end of 1, and so make sure we subdivide there. Here we go for number 4. 2, 1 and 2, and here we go. And 1 and 2, 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 and. Very good. All right, we're going to number 5. This is where we get a little bit tricky here in the third measure. Don't let that confuse you just because you have a quarter note. That quarter note does not, on that third measure, fall on beat 2. It falls on the end of 1. And since it's a quarter note, we're on the end of 1, and it also takes care of the downbeat of 2. And so that last eighth note is going to be on the end of 2. Okay? It's kind of, if you think about, if you see an eighth note as being the last note of a measure, you're going to know that you're going to have to play on the end of 2 in this case, or the end of 4 in what we were doing before. But that kind of gives you a heads up, you know, oh, that eighth note's the last note. So that means maybe, you know, that quarter note should be on the end of 1. Okay? All right, so number 5, here we go. 2, 1 and 2, and here we go. And 1 and 2, 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 and. Did you do okay on that? All right. Okay, and so number 6, we have the dotted quarter note. You remember what that is? It's extending the value by half, right? So that dotted quarter note is going to be a beat and a half, and that's why that last eighth note, and that measures on the end of 2. All right, so let's give that one a try. 2, 1 and 2, and here we go. And 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1 and 2. Repeat. And 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1 and 2. Not too bad, huh? How'd that do for you? And notice how there in that third measure, we obviously didn't play on the downbeat of 1. We started on the end of 1, and because it was a dotted quarter note, it took care of the rest of that measure. So hopefully you're seeing that. Now we're going to get into 16th notes of number 7, and again we're going to repeat that, so hang with me. Here we go. 2, 1 E and a 2 E and a here we go. E and a 1 E and a 2, and 1 and 2 E and a 1 and 2 and 1 E and a 2. Again, 1 E and a 2, and 1 and 2 E and a 1, 2 and 1 E and a 2. No big deal. See how that works. And then number 8 is we have now combinations of eighths and sixteenths, and let's go ahead and play that one. 1, natural sticking, right? 1 and a 2, and here we go. And 1 and a 2, and a 1 and 2, and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and 2. Repeat. 1 and a 2 and a 1 and 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and 2 and. All right. Very good. So that was study number 14, and hopefully you did very well on that. If not, that's okay. Take it slower. Go back to 60, go back to 50, whichever you need. I think you're by now at a point where you can do this at 70, I'm pretty sure. So next week we're going to go into study number 15, where the rhythms become a little bit more complex, right? Next week also we're going to be learning a new rudiment. Yes, yay. Okay, and then also a new exercise. All these exercises, I understand. Okay, so how can you practice everything that you know every day? Well, you can't, okay? Unless you're in the beginning stages like what we are here, yes, you can practice everything that we've learned so far every day. But there's a time where you're going to be learning a lot, and you know a lot, and you won't be able to practice everything every day. And I'm in that category. And so sometimes I'll pick my days, like, you know, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'm going to work on all my flam rudiments. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to work on all my diddle or roll or drag rudiments. Drag, what is a drag? We're going to learn that next week, as a matter of fact. One thing that you just got to remember is, okay, well, what am I weak at? Maybe I should work on that more than anything else. And that's sometimes what I do as well, as I really take the things that I'm having a very hard time at and work on that. So hopefully that helps. If you have to, you can write out a schedule for yourself. You know, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes on this. I'm going to give myself 2 minutes on that and 7 minutes on this. Whatever works for you, okay? But the more organized you are and the more you realize and how you're practicing, that is all about being your own best teacher, okay? And that's where it becomes really cool, because your practice time becomes much more beneficial. You can sit there and play paradiddles all day long, but if you're not getting it, you know, and you're not doing it right, and you're developing bad habits or you're continuing bad habits, then obviously you're going to have a bad time. So make sure you're your own best teacher. Record yourself if you have to, or better yet, sit in front of a mirror and play, so you can see if the stick heights are the same and things like that. So just little tips on practicing, and it's an art in itself. Practicing, number one, starts with discipline and getting to do it. And you got to do it. And if you don't do it, then you're not going to get any better, okay? So that's just a fact. And then number two, I don't want to practice. You know, I get that feeling too, you know, but once I'm doing it, then I'm like, yeah, I got it done. Or there's times where I practice and I'm like, I didn't get any better, or this is not happening. I've spent years on some things and still believe that it's not where I want it. So there's some things in there, especially on the drum set. There's some things I've played for years and I still can't get this. So, but that's all right. And that's where I'm at. So that's all we have for this week on Learning to Drum. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you join us next week. Like I said, we have a lot of nice things that we're going to be learning next week. Take a look ahead if you want. So please join us next week on Learning to Drum. I'm your host, Adam Tevlin, and always remember to keep swinging those sticks. That's right. It's the most important thing. Take care.